Oh, I didn't even see you guys. Heh, I'm just bullshitting. Of course I see you guys there. Do you know how I usually start this out? I am 22 Tiger Dude. Welcome to Animation Domination Reviews. Let's cut all the blah 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 and let's get to the reviewing. So let's start off with the Bob's Burgers episode, Uncle Teddy. This episode is about when Bob and Linda leave to the burger convention. So Bob asks Teddy if he could babysit Tina, Jean, and Louise for the weekend while they're out of town. So Teddy is pretty much being the uncle for the whole weekend. That is how the episode is called, Uncle Teddy. While Teddy is taking care of the kids, Tina has a crush on this boy, and she will do anything just to get close to him. But it turns out that the boy is just only using Tina for free burgers. Asshole. But yes, Tina's in love. Teddy has to make sure Tina stays away from the boy as possible and never sees him. And that's really all you have to know. I'm gonna be honest, this Bob's Burgers episode was a pleasant surprise for me. I really enjoyed this episode. It's a whole lot of fun. I thought the storyline was very well written. I enjoyed the whole plot with Bob and Linda at the burger convention, how Bob is hated there. I actually found that plot to be very funny, and I actually really enjoyed the subplot. It was really funny but also really sweet to see Teddy and Jean and Louise, just them bonding. And of course we have the plot that I honestly don't really care about. That is the Tina plot. And Tina herself is one of my flaws with the episode, honestly. I thought she was really annoying. I really did not care about her storyline. Every time it cuts to Tina and her stupid, boyish storyline, the cliche, the boy uses her, this and that, I just really did not care. When it's the Bob and Linda plot, I cared. When it's Teddy, Jean, and Louise, I did care. But Tina, I just all like, okay, just move on to the other plots. There was a lot of humor to the episode. It's very well executed. For the most part, very well paced. It just felt draggy every time it cut to the Tina plot. The last 5 minutes of this episode is hysterical, and how the episode itself ends is hysterical as well. A lot of the moments made me laugh hard, especially the final 5 minutes. Overall, I am pleasantly surprised by this episode. I really could care less about the Tina plot, but the Bob-Linda plot I really enjoyed, and I actually really enjoyed the Teddy, Louise, and Jean plot as well. It's a very well constructed Bob's Burgers episode, so I give the episode an 8 out of 10. Good morning, USA. I got a feeling that it's gonna be a wonderful day. Yep, I'm now on to American Dad, and I apologize if my singing was horrible. This episode is called I Ain't No Holodeck Boy. The episode is about when Stan takes Steve and his friends into the woods for some outdoor playtime because he feels like that the kids are wasting their time on video games and on their phones, just anything technology related. So he wanted to show him the true outdoors of taking him camping. Francine doesn't like the idea, but Stan goes against her wishes and takes them out to camping. Except Stan uses this hologram thing that makes it seem like they're actually in the woods when there aren't. So Stan is technically using technology on the boys, and it's just to teach them a lesson, but it backfires when the boys use it on Stan to get a little comeuppance on him. And then in the main plot, Haley thinks that Roger doesn't show any emotion, so she is actually claiming that she has purchased Roger's Homestar and that she is actually the queen to try to get Roger to show his emotion. But Roger refuses to do that, but he does have a little heart, and you actually see that in here. I really enjoyed this American Dad episode. I thought it was very well handled. I don't like the Haley Roger plot. I'm just going to say that right now. I just didn't care for it. What makes this episode really enjoyable is by far the main plot, when Stan takes the boys to just enjoy some outdoor, and by that he uses this computer hologram machine thing to make it seem like they're actually out in the woods, and I thought that was a really cool concept. And then later on in the episode, the kids actually backfire and do it on Stan, where it actually takes Stan back to his very horrible childhood where he lived in the dumps and his dad was pretty much never there for him. He's there, but all his dad Jack did was just drink, watch TV. And I really dug how this episode actually dig down into Stan's little past and the horrible neighborhood Stan had to live in. I thought that was really creative of the plot to actually do that. The episode isn't really that funny. I only found myself laughing a few times in this episode, but for me, it's perfectly understandable because in the main plot with Stan and the boys, I felt like they were really digging deep, going into a lot of depth, and it just kept me interested. It was just a very well developed episode in my humble opinion. My only problems with this episode personally is that it does get a little boring in a few moments. Like I said, I just didn't care for the Haley Roger plot, but the biggest problem with that was how that ended. And Roger as a whole, you just can't stand him. I really wanted to punch him, especially for what he did in the ending. It's just all like, that's the last straw right there. So I'm going to give this episode a 7 out of 10. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Now we go on to the Simpsons episode, The War of Art. So this episode is about when Lisa's guinea pig destroys the living room art, and Marge wants to find a new art to hang in the living room. So the Simpsons, they go to the Van Houten's yard sale. Marge happens to find this painting she is absolutely in love with. She buys it from the Van Houten's yard sale. And then they find out that this painting is actually worth a fortune. And so because they find out about that, they feel really bad as to whether they should tell the Van Houtens about their painting being worth a fortune, or Marge and the family keeping the painting and figuring out what they're going to do with the money. The Van Houtens find out thanks to Milhouse, and then the whole town finds out about it, so everything really goes into shit with this whole painting. I liked this episode. I thought it had a satisfying storyline. I really enjoyed the concept of the painting being worth a fortune, which you could kind of see coming based on how artistic and beautiful it is. There's plenty of humor in this episode to keep it refreshing, to keep the flow overall just coming together very well. Max von Sydow actually guest stars in this episode as this artist. My only flaws with this episode is that it does get boring a few times. I did think how Milhouse was blackmailing Homer and Marge unless they get him whatever he wants, but ends up blabbing it out to his parents just because he knew about the painting being worth a fortune. That's definitely my biggest problem, by the way. Milhouse, I don't care if it's easy for you to blur about things, but when you make a deal, dude, you keep it. There was just no point of Marge and Homer to do all that stuff for Milhouse, and that literally bugged me a whole lot, and by far my biggest problem with the episode. I also thought it was stupid how Luann and Kirk's marriage, it's over at that auction, and then the ending, which comes literally a few minutes later, they're already back together. And the final problem I had with the episode is that it definitely ended fast. Like, after Homer and Lisa visit that artist, the episode just cuts to Homer and Marge getting their boat painting art replaced, and Luann and Kirk getting back together and having that painting that Marge bought. It was just really quick, episode cuts. Overall, I did like this episode. It's flawed, but I thought it was good nonetheless, and overall makes for a very interesting episode. I'm going to give this episode a solid 7 out of 10. Now I'm here to review the Family Guy episode, Fresh Hire. So, this episode is about when Chris is actually the hire for Carter's fortune. But Chris, he refuses to take the fortune because he would feel bad to take the money from his own grandpa. But Peter, he uses Chris and acts like he wants to hang out with him just so he could get the money from him. Really, Peter? Just really? Straight off the bat, I'm going to say this. This is a really enjoyable episode. For 10 minutes. It has a few funny moments, but other than those positives I just already said, the episode is absolute crap. This is not a good Family Guy episode. It's by far one of the worst episodes of the season. Why was the first 10 minutes really enjoyable? Because for those first 10 minutes, you actually get to see Chris hanging out with Carter. You actually get to see Carter and Chris bond, and from those moments on, I thought that was really heartwarming. And to me, it was really sweet. That's really good to see how Carter was enjoying his time with Chris. I was just really digging that. It actually made me smile. And then you don't see Carter for the rest of the episode after that. So once you don't see Carter anymore, starting from there, I did not like the episode anymore. I really enjoyed it for the first 10 minutes, but after that, ooh, no. One thing for sure is that Peter is a jerk. He was a terrible father. Because Chris, he wants to spend time with Peter. Peter, he doesn't want to hang out with Chris. He'd rather just sit in his ass and watch television. And of course, it makes Chris feel bad. And that's another reason why poor Chris was hanging out with Carter, because he needed at least someone to hang out with, since his dad pretty much doesn't want to hang out with him at all, which I found really sad. And Peter, he decides all of a sudden that he wants to hang out with Chris. But you want to know why? It's because of the money. Wow. Peter, you are an asshole. And then just when you didn't think the episode could get any more worse, there is this one moment in this episode that once it happened, my reaction was this. Are you fucking kidding me? That was my reaction when that certain scene happens. You want to know what it is? Peter proposes to Chris. That's right. Peter, the father, is marrying his own son, Chris. Oh, did I mention there was this horrible scene where Peter was actually holding bleeding testicles? Yeah, this episode really goes too far. I just really hated this episode, and if it weren't for the first 10 minutes just being so good and a few very funny moments, this episode definitely would have been a lot worse than it already is. The episode sucks. I hated the storyline. The fact that Peter and Chris married each other was so wrong. And the humor is terrible too. There's no excuse for this crap to even exist. So I'm going to give this piece of crap Family Guy episode a 4 out of 10.